Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. Time for our news bulletin. I am Bethha, and starting off with the main headlines of the day. Welcome back. The news in full. Marking the 43rd anniversary of the Sinai Liberation Day, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today laid a wreath on the memorial of the unknown soldier in Nasr City. President el-Sisi then laid a wreath at the tomb of late President Muhammad Anwar al-Sadat, the hero for peace, and read the Holy Quran opening in mercy of his poor soul. The memory falls on April 25 of 1982 in coronation of the liberation and restoration of Sinai lands from the Israeli occupation. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today extended condolences to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the wake of a terrorist attack that targeted Indian tourists in Kashmir and expressed Egypt's full solidarity with India. In a phone conversation, President el-Sisi reiterated Egypt's condemnation to all sorts of terrorism and extremism, pointing to Egypt's efforts to combat terrorism and extremist ideologists. Indian Prime Minister highly appreciated President el-Sisi condolences, stressing on the strong ties binding both countries and their peoples. President el-Sisi and the Indian Prime Minister reviewed bilateral ties and stressed the significance of the strategic ties between Egypt and India, and also the significance of joint work to open new horizons of cooperation. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today invited Kuwaiti investors to explore the investment opportunities available in Egypt while benefiting from the facilities provided by the government to establish industrial partnerships between Egypt and Kuwaiti businesses. He noted that Egypt is a promising market, allows investors to obtain large sums of investment revenues. The president made these remarks in a meeting with a Kuwaiti business delegation headed by Mohammed Al-Sakra, who is the chairman of the Kuwaiti side at the Egyptian Kuwaiti Cooperation Council. President el-Sisi said that he cherishes the brotherly ties binding him and Kuwaiti Emir Sheikh Mishal Al-Ahmad Al-Gaber Al-Subah, asserting the pivotal role of the Kuwaiti businessmen and manufacturers in pushing forward bilateral ties and joint cooperation in a number of investment fields. As he received Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, Antonio Tajani, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today said that he deeply appreciates the deeply rooted ties with Italy. The meeting tackled enhancing bilateral ties in many economic, trade, and investment fields and opportunities for developing partnerships in the energy, food security, agriculture, and livestock domains. The two sides also engaged in talks on other issues, including bilateral cooperation in combating illegal migration and the latest regional developments of mutual concern. On Gaza, the meeting reviewed Egypt's efforts for restoring a ceasefire deal which grants a prisoner hostage swap and a large access of humanitarian aid. The situation in Syria, Libya, and Sudan, as well as the Red Sea security and the U.S.-Iran negotiations file, also featured prominently at the meeting. Addressing a press conference with his Italian counterpart, Antonio Tajani, Minister of Foreign Migration and Egyptian Expatriates Affairs Badr Abdulati, today said that Egypt and Italy are bound by historic cooperation and stressed both sides' keen interest in enhancing such a cooperation in different political, economic, and trade fields. The top diplomat said he discussed with Italy's Tajani the situation in Libya, reiterating Egypt's rejection of the presence of any foreign militia on Libyan soil and pressing for the quick holding of elections there. The Italian guest, meanwhile, offered gratitude for Egypt and its political leadership, asserting his country's full backing of the Egyptian mediation efforts to reach and hold the ceasefire deal in Gaza, which ensured the release of all hostages and captives and allowed the access of urgently needed relief and humanitarian aid in the war-torn strip. The conference came after the two top diplomats met on boosting bilateral cooperation in different fields. Palestinian Health Ministry said that Israeli occupation airstrikes killed at least 36 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip since dawn today. A strike hit a police station Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip early today, killing at least 10 as the Israeli occupation forces claimed it had struck a command center of Hamas and Jihad groups. 6 other Palestinians were killed in a raid by the occupation troops. 5 Palestinians were killed in a raid on camps sheltering Palestinians in different areas across the Gaza Strip. Another raid targeted a point of food distribution for the displaced in the central Gaza, killed 3 Palestinians and injured others. Spain announced today that it had cancelled a multi-million-dollar contract to buy bullets from an Israeli company that infuriated the socialist-led administration far-left coalition partner. Spain said it had halted weapons transactions with the Israeli Occupation Authority after the outbreak of the aggression in Gaza that has devastated the occupied Palestinian territory, killing more than 50,000 people. The deal has sparked outrage from the socialist far-left coalition partner Sumar, which said it was a violation of the pledge not to trade arms with the Occupation Authority and demanded its immediate cancellation. The UK government announced today it was lifting sanctions that were imposed on Syria's interior and defense ministries, adding that sanctions against various media groups and intelligence agencies were also lifted. In March, the UK dropped sanctions against 24 Syrian businesses, mostly banks and oil companies. The European Union, meanwhile, has begun to ease some energy and transport sanctions and banking restrictions against Syria, suspending measures targeting oil, gas, and electricity, as well as transport, including the aviation sector. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Iran must give up all nuclear enrichment if it wants to make a deal during talks with the Trump administration and head of the threat of the armed conflict. Iran insists its nuclear program is for civilian energy use and says it does not seek to make weapons-grade uranium to build atomic bombs. Head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, said that Iran has agreed to allow in a technical team to discuss restoring camera surveillance at nuclear sites. Also, Russia attacked Kiev with an hour-long barrage of missiles and drones. Russia attacked Kiev with an hours-long barrage of missiles and drones, killing at least 9 people and injuring more than 17 in its deadliest assault on the Ukrainian capital since last July, and just as peace efforts are coming to a head. More details in the following report.
The Ukrainian Air Force said Russia fired at least 70 missiles and 145 drones at Ukraine overnight, the main target being Kiev, where at least 9 people were killed. In a statement on social media, the Air Force said it had detected and tracked 215 enemy air targets, including ballistic and cruise missiles, of which 112 were confirmed to have been shot down. Ukraine has been battered by Russian aerial attacks through the war, but deadly strikes on Kiev, which is better protected by air defenses that other cities, are less common. The attacks throw yet more doubt on already fraught U.S. efforts to push Russia and Ukraine to agree to a ceasefire, hours after U.S. President Donald Trump lashed out at Ukrainian counterpart Vladimir Zelensky for refusing to accept Moscow's occupation of the Crimean Peninsula as a condition for peace. Ukrainian Foreign Minister said Putin demonstrates through his actions, not words, that he does not respect any peace efforts and only wants to continue the war. Through the night, rescue workers were scouring through the rubble of destroyed buildings and tackling blazes in apartment blocks. The Interior Ministry said damage was recorded at 13 separate locations across the capital. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said at least 9 people were killed and more than 60 wounded. It added that 6 children were among 42 people hospitalized, and Kiev was last hit by missiles in early April when at least 3 people were wounded and the capital has been targeted in sporadic attacks since Russia launched its full-scale invasion on February 2022.
Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, who is also Egypt's governor to the World Bank Group, said that Egypt has a promising and stable market, adding that the government is following up a comprehensive policy to maintain the economic stability and enhance competitiveness on both regional and international levels. Al-Mashat was speaking during an expanded meeting with International Jefferies Group and a number of international investors on the sidelines of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank spring meetings in Washington. She also added that the political leadership is keen to encourage local and foreign investments through offering a package of incentives to improve the state business atmosphere. China called for all unilateral U.S. tariffs to be cancelled today as signs emerged that the Trump administration may de-escalate its trade war with Beijing. China also clarified that it has not held trade talks with Washington despite comments from the U.S. government suggesting there had been engagement. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the U.S. will have a deal with China, and yesterday there was direct contact between both countries. Dear viewers, by that we come to the end of our news bulletin. Thanks for watching. That was Basmata signing off.